So, therapy, 10 days ago. My therapist asked me, when did you last directly express anger towards your father? And I said, I've never expressed anger at my father. And I said, I've never expressed anger at anyone, maybe since high school. I don't directly express anger. I hold it, and I hold it, and I hold it, and then I blog about it. Or there's just like this free-floating hostility inside of me, and it will come out on people. I got into trouble at work. There's this non-Jewish lawyer down the hall with whom I thought I had this really frank friendship where we could say like provocative things to each other. And so a few days before Christmas, I came up to him and I said, hey, my rabbi says I can't say Merry Christmas, or I really shouldn't, because that's giving legitimacy to Christian religion. By saying Christmas, you're saying that Jesus is the Christ. And so I'm just going to say Happy Holidays. Like, I went up to him and said this. It wasn't just like he asked me, why don't you say Merry Christmas? But I went up to him and said this. And next time I saw him, he called me Mr. Racism and Mr. Bigotry, and just been going off at me, to everyone else on the hall. And so I've been talking about it in therapy. And I had to admit to my therapist that there was this like free-floating hostility behind what I did. I don't know, I get a charge of lashing out at the goyim.
Because he's authority?
No, he's not my boss. He's.
What does he represent to you?
I think he has to represent my father.
How so?
I think I just have this free-floating hostility towards my father, and it just comes out. And it just was like an opportunity to give it to the guy, which was really an opportunity to give it to my father.
Okay.
And just like stuck it in his ribs. And I didn't like the consequences, because now no friendship, and he's complaining about me to everyone in the hall. And so then the other Orthodox Jew on the hall comes up to me and says, you can't speak this way, the Goyim don't like it, it fuels anti-Semitism, and you've got to self-peddle these things, and just say
Was there any
holidays.
point where you thought it was disrespectful?
No. So I was relaying this to my therapist and saying, yeah, I guess that's a hostility that that was really ultimately directed towards my father. And so she says, well, maybe you should get angry with your father. Maybe that would be good for you, as you've never done that according to what you said in your life. And so how would you feel if we have an empty chair next week, and you can just rage and just say everything to your father? Is that okay? Like, I'll try anything that's not dangerous. And
Did that idea scare you at all?
yeah, it's not me. I'm not into like venting.
That could be really confrontational.
Yeah, it's not me. I certainly don't want to say angry things towards my father. And I'm not into getting in touch with anger and expressing it verbally, because it can spin out of control. You can't be as exact as with your blogging. And with your blogging, you can fine-tune it, you can scope it, you can rehearse it, and that's controlled. But anger uncontrolled is really scary, because you never know what you're going to say. I mean, I think perhaps the last time that I lashed out at someone in anger was in 8th grade, and this guy, I think he took advantage of like 4 strikes of the plate in front of me. And then that was the end of the game. I didn't get to hit. So I yelled at him, you stupid faggot! Because that was our term of derision for anyone. Like, faggot was just huge in my elementary school. And I just lashed out at him, and then I turned around, and the woman that I was staying with, because my parents were gone, I was like right there. So I don't think I've ever lashed out in anger at anyone since that time. Because like, it made me feel really icky to have like lashed out like that in front of this woman, because I'm a very different person with my caretaker, the woman I was staying with for a few months. And I was always respectful and quiet and subdued and never made waves. But, you know, this guy who took my at-bat, you know, I just like, boom, just launched it. So, therapy Monday, well prepared for like the open chair. I talked to my dad. I had some thoughts about things that I wanted to vent at. I was kind of prepared to say, yeah, I know that no matter what I say, I'm going to be wrong. You know, I know that. You've got the PhD in rhetoric. No matter what, no matter the argument, I'm always wrong. You're always right. So, I'm ready. I never get to do the empty chair. She says, tell me about the things you admire about your father. It's like, I was so prepared for the empty chair and like venting, which would be so uncomfortable for me, that this is what you said we would do next week. So, okay, the things I admire about my father. My father's a great man, and so I admire greatness.
Was that easy for you to switch that?
Yeah, fairly easy. It was like a little hiccup, but like, okay, my father's a great man. I've never seen my father do anything unethical. Like, that's amazing. You know, I've known my father for 45 years. Never
So
seen
you don't
him.
consider abuse?
Well, he may have only spanked me twice. It's definitely less than 6 times. My stepmother would hit me in anger quite a bit. But my father just actually spanking me.
But he allowed that. He didn't interfere.
He would try to reduce it, but he probably wasn't around most of the time when that was happening. So...
Oh, I thought he was really abusive all the time.
No.
He would just threaten.
No, my mother was, meaning my stepmother. My stepmother...
Your father wasn't verbally abusive?
Yeah, he could definitely dress you down very sharply. But he never, like, swore. Never used bad language.
Would you consider him verbally abusive?
I would consider him verbally manipulative.
Is
No
that
matter
abuse?
what you do, you're wrong.
Is that abuse?
I wouldn't go there. I'm not the type of person who expresses anger.
No, but it's just to go with he was completely ethical. I never saw him do anything that was unethical.
Yeah, like, those are more, my objections are more tricky. It's harder to point someone out as being verbally manipulative when they're a PhD in rhetoric.
You don't think it was a weapon?
Oh, it was definitely a weapon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a weapon. And as he did the twice daily worship at home, morning and evening, he would pick the text from the Bible which would address the wrongdoing going on in the home.
Right.
Love that. And so I realized from all this, and I'm going to say this out loud, I think for the first time to anyone outside of my family, my mother was so meaning my stepmother, was so psychotic 2 weeks out of the month that my dad was yearning for her to die. And I think I was yearning for her to die much of the time. Like she was a perfectly decent woman 2 weeks out of the month. And then 2 weeks out of the month, she was just raging. She was, she would hit me. She would make life hell for my father, for me, for my older brother and sister. She would cause shame for my father publicly. And my father couldn't divorce her because if he did, his career as a gospel preacher would be over. If you can't keep your family together, then how can you keep the family of God together? So my father had no alternative, but he told my stepmother before they got married, my work is number one for me. Like my gospel ministry is number one for me.
Do you think she had borderline personality disorder?
I don't know what that is. I have no psychological training. I've heard about it. But I do know that her life, she changed when she got the hormone replacement therapy that she needed when I was 18. She just changed and became a perfectly outstanding person 4 weeks out of the month. Prior to that, 2 weeks out of the month, she was nuts. Just nuts. And so my dad saw no way out if he wanted to keep his work, his gospel preaching, his career. And so I grew up in a home where my dad was dying for my mother to die. And where I was probably dying for my mother to die. And I never saw any love between my father and my stepmother. It may have been there because they're still together, and they've always been dutiful. They're dutiful to me, dutiful to each other. One person's sick, they bring soup. And my sister tells me that I see my childhood through a glass darkly, and I know that there is some truth to that. And so I just never had a sense that they enjoyed or reveled in each other's company. I saw a mutual commitment to the cause of the Christian evangelism that my father did. And my father was supportive of my mother's cause, which was to help women with premenstrual syndrome. So I learned to drive on the family car, which had the license plate PMS Lady. And so probably, I'm wondering how it affected me that like 2 weeks of the month,
Did it make you afraid of women?
Yeah. And when I would talk about Mum's rages, and whenever I use Mum, I would mean my stepmother, unless I clearly signify otherwise, I would talk about her rages to Dad, and he'd say, well, all women are like this. And I'd say, but, I know other women, I know these other families, and they're not like this. And he said, well, you're not living there. I said, yeah, but I have lived there for weeks at a time or months at a time. It's not like this. But no, that was the pat answer that I got, that all women are like this. So my dad hated women because my dad's mother was a sex and love addict. She would go around Australia chasing various men. So she was a terrible mother. Like her two boys just totally lost out as she would run around the country chasing men. So yeah, I guess my dad had a great first marriage from all indications. Like they would hold hands when they went walking. They seemed very much in love. And then my poor stepmother had to deal with all these indications about the saintly Gwen, my mother. Like, imagine how easy that was to deal with. And my brother and sister were very clear that they did not accept my stepmother as a mother. And Dad's constantly invoking the saintly Gwen. She's off her rocker 2 weeks of the month. She doesn't enjoy being off her rocker. Like she's alternating between depression and anger. And when she was down, I guess much that time I wanted to die. I wanted to be rid of her. But when she was up, she was great. I was close to her for 2 weeks of the month. And then it was like this radioactive, toxic person the other 2 weeks of the month that I tried to stay away from. And I would started telling myself I will never forgive her for X, Y, Z. And then I would relent because things would get really good for a week or two. Because I could have a bond and a connection with my stepmother that I couldn't have with my father. Or that I never had with my father. And then as I moved through my teens, more and more I became determined behind I will never forgive her for this. Like she's dead to me. She's dead to me. And so part of it's just was the natural boy separating from the mother in my teens. I gradually stopped talking to her. Not in a...
How do you feel about her now?
I exchange email with my stepmother several times a week.
Are you fond of her?
I'm fond of her.
Do you love her?
Yeah, but I'm embarrassed about her in public. Like the last time we were together in Los Angeles, I took her to my temple, Stephen S. Wise Temple, 1995, and I was just so embarrassed by her. I don't remember the details, but I didn't say or do anything, but I just shriveled up inside, and she felt it, and she stomped off to the car, and just sat in there crying, and then I drove her to the airport after the temple, and she was crying the whole time. So I'm just so ashamed and embarrassed about her in public.
About what?
Just doesn't read social cues. Just says things that are just not appropriate. Just, I can't stand being saddled. 2 girlfriends ago, she didn't read social cues. I just can't stand being saddled with friends or anyone who doesn't read cues. I'm bad enough myself. I definitely do not want to be connected to anyone worse than me reading social cues. It's just so appalling. It's just so shameful. She just seems like a buffoon. Just not cool. And my dad's out of it, but I've never. Is he as appalling as my stepmother in public? No, he's not as appalling.
So you're afraid it's going to reflect on you?
I don't know what. I just hate it. I just hate being with my stepmother in public, and I don't like being with my father in my group either, because I guess they're oblivious to other people, largely oblivious to other people, and so determined to say what they want to say, and I'm bad enough in this way to be with someone. Maybe it's the reflection, painful reflection of myself that I see in them, but I just hate it. Just so embarrassed. But I haven't been in public with my stepmother since 1995. I haven't seen my stepmother for 12 years. And so my parents now live in Australia. They moved back to Australia in 2000.
So do you feel like an orphan?
Well, I pretty much determined it early on in my teens that my stepmother was dead to me, which is not congruent with how frequently I email her. My shul is my community. So therefore, when I lose my shul, when I get ejected from my shul, I get so dramatically re-traumatized to what happened in the first 4 years where I lived with so many different families. It's just losing a job, getting fired, or losing a girlfriend, or losing a shul. They all feel identical to me. It's just, it must be the re-experiencing of early childhood trauma. I just feel devastated. My world's cracked apart. Because I kind of make my shul my family. So,
do you have any understanding about your mother's pain?
Yeah, I think I have some.
What it must feel like for her to be condemned?
I think I have a lot of understanding of my mother's pain because I'm in more contact with her than anyone else in the family, and it's very easy.
But you've kind of rejected her.
I guess I minimize expectations. I tell my therapist that there's nothing that I want from my mother or father, and then I tell her don't trust me when I say that. But
is there anything they want from you?
Oh yeah, they want me to stop shaming them.
Do they want to see you?
Oh, probably, but I remember when I offered to go back to Australia 18 months ago, in July, they said, oh, you wouldn't like it now, it's cold. It's winter there. And I remember when I went to Loma Linda University to see my dad speak about 3 years ago, and he was terribly embarrassed that I was coming, and he asked that I shave, but I had a beard at the time, and I refused to shave, but I did not wear a yarmulke or my fringes out. But he would have been much happier if I had not shown up. I'm a tremendous embarrassment to him. Second sentence in his Wikipedia entry is, he's the father of former pornography gossip columnist Luke Ford.
Okay, what kind of feedback would you like?
What you'd like to know more about and what took you on.
Well, I was disappointed that we didn't get to see the empty chair. You know, and you never got to do it, but you could have done it for us.
Yeah.
You know, so, because you were prepared for it,
Yeah.
you know, I was kind of disappointed. Because I think it would be good for you. And,
Yeah, it probably would be.
yeah.
Next week.
Was your stepmother aware when she was at her 2 good weeks about the bad weeks? Did she
Yeah.
apologize? Was she remorseful? Was she
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
find solutions?
Yeah. I guess as someone who now realizes he's an addict, I understand. Kind
Yeah,
of
because
what she
obviously
was-
the PMS, and she
Yeah.
got into these things,
Yeah.
a small percentage of it.
mirroring, interesting. You shame them, they shame you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
embarrass them, they
Yeah.
embarrass you.
Yeah.
You hate them, they hate you.
Yeah.
You want them to visit, they don't want you to be. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's and a lot of what you were saying about them is what people say about you. That you say inappropriate things.
Yeah,
You shut you
yeah,
down.
yeah,
And that's what
yeah,
they do.
yeah,
So I just found that interesting. A lot of
yeah.
parallels. And then you even said, maybe it's so painful because I'm looking at a mirror of myself.
Yeah.
You said it like that, and I also think it's fascinating that we can have that awareness of ourselves and still feel all that pain, still be so in it.
Yeah.
That's what really struck me. Because I get that. The intellectual looking in.
Yeah, I've got the
And then-
intellectual awareness, but not the emotional.
You do. You could write a book about this stuff, but you're still suffering, which is what I find interesting and I relate to.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I just want to mention that also, I like the revelation, and I certainly relate to it, of saying not connected. You don't want to be connected to anyone worse than yourself about things. And I think that that's the truth of all of us. I often say the last thing I want is more of me. You know, and I think that that's something, especially in your story, that is really a revelation. And I found it very interesting and insightful to say that.
I think there's a lot of poignancy in the characters so wanting and needing connection, and yet pushing away those people that love him.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
yeah.
you know, her so wanting to be with you, and then, you know, her just leaving in disgrace, and the renewable resource of embarrassment and shame that just keeps, you know, all the family members. And then what is it like for the Christian father to, you know, to have the, or, you know, in the full regalia Orthodox Jew? And just, I'd love to see the two images, how he dresses, what he looks like, with, you know, when you had the full everything, and what you're hoping that that communicates to him. And will these people ever really see each other and let each other in? So you can decide whether you want to go there for that or not. And the tragedy of it, the sadness of it. Okay.
I have one other quick question. When you went to see your father and he was mortifyingly embarrassed that you were there, was part of the reason you were there to embarrass him? Or did you just go to see him? Because I just saw the glee that you had at the second line of his Wikipedia review. That brought you great joy. So I was wondering if one of the things that you really did want to do was embarrass him.
Another parallel that I just thought of is when he would read the Bible, you know, the parts of the Bible, to quietly shame everyone in the family but from a pedestal. And how now you can do that, and how you do that on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And also it's your ultimate Bible reading for the morning and the evening, right?
Like that. Never remember that.
And the connection between being directly angry and embarrassing, or, you know, giving it to him. Is that your version of direct anger? So just the connection of when you use embarrassment.
Yeah.
And when you feel shamed, is there a connection of not being able to express what it really is? Okay. All right. Good, deep, hard work. Who wants to pop up?